Good evening, everybody. On behalf of the Zoological Association of Burdwan, I deeply welcome all of you to the online summer lecture series for undergraduate studies in zoology. Today, we are honored to have with us Dr. Animesh Mondal, Assistant Professor in Zoology, Government General Degree College, Mangalkote. Dr. Mondal graduated from Presidency College and did Masters in Zoology from Presidency University. He completed PhD from Indian Institute of Chemical Biology. His research interests are on protein aggregation and amyloidosis with focus on Parkinson's disease, Raman spectroscopy. For characterization of protein, he has published more than 10 research articles in reputed international and national journals and 2 book chapters also. Dr. Mondal is the life member of Indian Science Congress Association. He received travel grant from Indian Council of Medical Research in 2019 to present his research work at 63rd annual meeting of the Biophysical Society, Baltimore, USA. His achievement includes Summer Research Fellowship from the National Academy of Sciences, Outstanding Paper Presentation Award at 5th Regional Science Congress in 2023. After saying these few words, now I am joyfully inviting Dr. Mondal to deliver his lecture on bird migration for favor of students. Over to you, Dr. Mondal.
Thank you, Dr. Ghosh, for your kind introduction. Am I audible to all of you? Okay, thank you. So, as I welcome all of you to this warm evening, and I'm really grateful to the organizer of Zoological Association of Bardwan for providing me this opportunity to deliver a lecture on bird migration. So, without further delay, I am starting my lecture. So, first, let me share my presentation with you. Is it visible? Okay, thank you. So let me start. So our topic is bird migration. Probably all of you are aware about the term migration. Now the term migration, what is the meaning of the term migration? Migration generally means to travel or to move. Now from where this the word migration come? Migration word generally derived from the Latin word migrare. Migrare means to travel. Travel means travel could be to any place for my need or for my amusement purpose. But in case of the bird migration, the scenario is quite different. In case of the animal, when they move from one place to another, we generally term this as a dispersal. But in case of bird, it is generally regarded as bird migration. Now, why the term is migration is used here? Migration is generally a coordinated, directed, periodic back and forth movement between at least two locations. Here, the emphasis is given on the term to and fro movement. That means it is onward and backward movement to the destination. So it is not a one-way movement. One-way movement means the bird is moving to one place and it is residing to that area. That is not considered here. Here, if the bird moved to a place and then if it is reverting back to its original native place, then we are considering this as a migration. Now, let me tell you some interesting fact about birds. So, in today's world, there are nearly about 11,000 bird species are found, and among these 11,000 bird species, 2,000 bird species took part in migration. And among these 2,000 species of bird, in India, we see about 357 migratory bird species. And among these 357 migratory bird species, 180 migratory birds follow a particular pathway that is considered as Central Asian Flyway. I shall discuss it later as our talk move. Now, according to Khan, what is the actual meaning of migration? Migration is a periodic passing of animals from one place to another. And on the other hand, as I have discussed earlier, that in animal it means dispersal or immigration implying no return journey. But in case of the bird, it is two-way journey. That means regular and periodic to and fro movement. I hope now the term is clear to all of you. Now, next question can come to your mind: why do birds migrate? Now, one blank point answer is that to cope up with the certain situation. Now, what are the nature's other mechanism to cope up with the certain situation or adverse situation? So, one way that if an animal decide that it will not move from this particular place or inhospitable place, then it can go through the hibernation, which involves entering a dormant state during the wintering season. But in case of the migration, that animal is leaving that particular place for a certain period of time. So why migration is necessary? So bird migration serves various purposes, primarily revolving around survival, reproduction, and accessing to certain kind of resources. Now, main reason is seasonal climate changes. So birds generally migrate to avoid harsh weather conditions such as in extreme cold or drought, where they generally live. If that area becomes inhospitable due to cold or certain drought, then it is necessary for this particular species of bird to move from that place to another place to ensure its survivability. Now, bird also moves for breeding. So, many species of bird migrate to a specific area for breeding purpose. Warmer region generally are abundant with food and nesting sites, which are crucial for their successful reproduction. Now, availability of the food is also a reason. So, migration allows bird to follow availability of the food sources, and they move to region where food is abundant during particular time of the year, which ensure that they should get proper energy for their breeding, molting, and for ensuring their survival. Now, through this migration, bird can escape from their predator. So, some birds generally migrate to escape from the predator that become more active during certain season. So, if bird can move from one place to another during this season when the predator is active, so then they can ensure their chance of survival. Now, another reason is habitat change. Changes in habitat due to certain factors like flooding, deforestation, and anthropogenic human activity can force the bird to migrate in search of suitable habitat. Day length is also a key factor. It is generally known as jet giver. Jet giver means jet giver not only the day length, it is the certain environmental cues that trigger the bird or prepare the bird to move from one place to another. So one kind of jet giver is day length. So bird often migrate in response to changes in day length and which trigger certain hormonal changes, which in turn leads to certain physiological changes, which then instinct the bird to migrate from their autumn place to their spring place. Now another reason is molting. Some bird may migrate to specific location to undergo molting as certain habitat provides safer condition for this process. Now there are some kind of social interaction that took place when the bird moved from one place to another. When the bird is moving from one place to another, already the place is occupied by certain kind of individual species that are generally regarded as resident bird species. So this bird species that is moving from its native place to another place, that is their wintering place. So there they encounter certain species of bird. So through which they generally interact with other species. Overall, bird migration is a complex behavior which is generally influenced by certain combination of factors which includes certain genetic factors, certain environmental cues, and individual learning. Now, I shall discuss this individual learning and genetics and environmental cues in my later portion. Now, what is the route for this migration of this bird? So the most common type of migration are those that is carried out by the bird in the spring and in the autumn. So as you can see here, in autumn, they generally travel from their breeding ground in the north to their wintering ground in the south. Because in this season, due to extreme cold condition, that area is inhospitable for that particular bird, so that it cannot ensure it survivability. So for ensuring its fitness or for ensuring its survivability, it has to move from one place to another. So this moving place is known as wintering ground, and wintering ground are often found in the south, because in that condition or in that region, that area is abundant with food and other resources. Now there are some seasonal pattern. So bird migration in India generally follows certain kind of distinct seasonal pattern. The winter season, which generally starts from October to March, which witnessed the arrival of migratory bird from the colder region of Asia, Europe, and Siberia. From that distant area, that bird moved from northern region to southern portion. And in southern region, they are coming for seeking their warmer climate and abundant food sources. So in majority of the bird or majority of the instances, that migration involves narrow belt. Narrow belt means the particular way through which or particular path through the bird generally move from one place to another. So this particular geographical area, which are covered by a migratory bird on the course of its annual cycle, corresponding to breeding and non-breeding grounds, and the connecting migration route is known as flyway. So what is flyway? Flyway is basically geographical area which is covered by a bird during its breeding and its non-breeding session. So this particular area is known as flyway. Flyway means the path through which the bird generally move. So there are different flyways. And generally, the internal weather group have identified 8 flyways, but now there is the existence of another one flyways. Altogether, there is 9 flyways. So in 8 major flyways, 3 flyways are found in America. First one is the Pacific American flyways. Second one is Central American flyways, and third one is Atlantic American flyways. So these flyways are connecting high Arctic region to Tierra del Fuego, which is the southernmost tip of the Southern American mainland. So Northern America and Southern America are connected through these 3 flyways. Now there are 3 another flyways. This is known as Palearctic African flyways, which encompasses of East Atlantic flyways, Mediterranean Black Sea flyway, and East Asia East African flyway, which constitute the world largest migratory bird system. This, remember the term, this East Asia and East African flyway, it is used by majority of the bird. And there is another 2 flyways, that is Central Asian flyways and East Asia Australasian flyway. So the Central Asia flyway, it is the shortest flyway of the world and lying entirely within the northern hemisphere, and it connects a large swath of the Palearctic with the Indian subcontinent. Now fewer species use this route because of formidable barrier that is present in Tibetan Plateau and Himalayas. So in India, majority of the bird which are migrating here, they use the Central Asian flyways. So as I have mentioned earlier, that in Central Asian flyways, you can observe nearly about 180 bird species which follow this path. And among these species, there are 2 category species, which one category is known as one category is included in the appendix 1 and another one is included in the appendix 2. And appendix 1, these are the highly threatened category, and appendix 2 is encompasses of nearly about 100 5 or 115 species. Now, among these major flyways, as I have mentioned earlier, that Central Asian flyways is the key factor for Indian migration of bird. Now, there are some key sites which generally used by the bird, and India boasts several critical sites for the bird migration, which include Bardhaman Bird Sanctuary, Keoladeo National Park in Rajasthan, Chilka Lake in Odisha, Rann of Kutch in Gujarat, and the Western Ghat. And these sites offer richer feeding ground, wetland, and shelter, which make them popular stopover point for their migration. Now, among this migration, seasonal movement could be grouped into four categories of bird. So first one is known as permanent resident, second one is known as summer resident, third one is winter resident, and fourth one is transient. Now, what is the meaning of permanent resident? Permanent resident means the bird who generally don't move, which are sedentary. They generally live within a particular area. Example is house sparrow. And in case of the summer resident, migratory birds such as purple martin, which are considered as summer resident. And for wintering resident, example is Siberian blue throat, which generally winters here. And for transient, I can give you the example of the Amur falcon, which generally roost for certain period of time in India, that is nearly a year. What are the evolutionary aspects behind this bird migration? So there are generally two theories that are postulated to encompass this migration. According to first theory, the bird spread over the northern hemisphere, and when it was warm and abundant food throughout the year, at the onset of the ice age. So ice age onset at about 2.5 million years ago during the Pleistocene epoch. So from that period, bird started its migration journey. So they were forced to shift southward for their survival. And with the end of the ice age, they returned in spring, but they had to shift southward due to sharp establishment of winter and summer season. And another theory says that the ancestral home of the bird generally was in tropic, but some of them went to north to avoid overcrowding and competition during this breeding season. And after the breeding, they return, and this became their permanent habitat in due course of time. Now, the migratory behavior that continues to evolve because of the changing environment in which the bird lives. Now, if environmental condition favors the migration, the number of the birds that migrate, which will normally increase, and if the condition permits of the bird to stay in one place, then what will happen? The sedentary population of the bird that will be predominating in nature. So, what are the cues that instigate bit migration? So, there are two kinds of cues. First one is known as external stimulus, and second one is known as internal stimulus. So, external stimulus generally, in the beginning, I have told that these are the jet givers. So, this jet giver is one of the jet giver is variation in day length. That is the environmental cues, which trigger the internal stimulus. So, when the bird observes that there is a change in day length, then that stimulate its pineal gland. And when there is a stimulation in the pineal gland, it is not necessary that this stimulus to the pineal gland will move through the optic source. It is not necessary. Certain experiment shows that there are also other sources. That means through deep brain photoreceptor and through retinohypothalamic tract to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, it can also instigate that hypothalamus, which in turn releases neurohormone, which then stimulate the pituitary to secrete gonadotropic hormone, and this gonadotropic hormone activates the gonad, causing urge to migrate. So at the time of regression of the gonad, bird become insensitive to the day length, and this insensitivity to the day length makes the bird ready for the stimulus for southward migration. Now this is the amazing fact depicted here. The bird that is shown here, that is black cap bird. It is female black cap bird. So here the are different axes that is depicted here to show how the bird is preparing itself for this migration. Now there is annual clock, and there is circadian clock, and there is also other signaling. Other signaling mechanism means photic response, thyroid signaling, and retinoic acid signaling. All these signaling work together to stimulate the circadian clock, and then this circadian clock stimulate other factor which then instigate the expression of certain genes. For example, I can tell you that when the bird need to move from one place to another, they need to deposit certain amount of fat to complete this migratory journey. Now, which factor is responsible for sensing this lipid? The name of this factor is RORS, RORS. So this is the lipid sensor factor which generally activated by certain complex. Now which complex this activate this ROR? That is BML1 and clock. BML1 and clock, these are the two complex which in turn activate RORS. Now there are other genes, that is PAR genes and cryptochrome genes. These two genes are also responsible for activation of this axis. Now, when this axis is activated, now there is a increase in thyroid signaling, which in turn instigates GnRH, then gonadal steroid synthesis, then there is a other changes of physiology. Now, there is another signaling, that is retinoic acid signaling. So, this retinoic acid signaling is basically linked to immune pathways and neurogenesis. Now, this retinoic acid pathway signaling is responsible uh, to activate this circannual clock. Now, this circannual clock and this circadian rhythm, this is not only environmental cues, but bird have some kind of general natural instinct through which they instigate or through which they prepare itself for this migration. Now, there are another experiment that shows epigenetic modification. Epigenetic modification means it is related to the methylation, and there is an alternation of the methylation level of certain genes, which in turn trigger the expression of certain factor, which trigger this circadian clock or modification of circadian clock or changes of the hormonal signal within the bird. Now, whenever this bird migrate, you people might have observed that these birds are moving in a flock and they are forming in V shape. Now, what is the necessity for forming this V shape when they are moving? It helps to save the energy approximately 20% when they move from one place to another. So, this is one kind of energy saving mechanism that birds heard long ago before human beings invented this mechanism. So whenever these kind of birds are moving, they generally moves in a flock or they can move alone. Not necessary that all the birds will move in a flock. Certain birds can move as an individual. So some species of bird are social during migration. So birds which are social, they generally prefer to move in a flock. So as you can see here in right side corner, these are the group of Amur falcon. So flock migrates include auks, puffin, cormorant, pelican, ducks, geese, cranes, gulls, terns, sandpiper, plover, and land bird include dove, swifts, swallows, pipits, crows, jays. So these are the flock migrants. Now, whenever you are encountering this term migrant or migration, there are another term, that is vagrant migration. Vagrant migration means the with other of kind, basically wing alone. So this is Blackwing Stealth, this is Imperial Eagle, this is Amur Falcon, this is Longtail Strike. Now depending upon the type of bird migration, it could be grouped into latitudinal migration, longitudinal migration, altitudinal migration, and partial migration. Now, what is the meaning of latitudinal migration? As the term denotes, the bird moves from north to south and vice versa. The common example is American golden plover. So, several American, North American, and Eurasian birds crosses the equator to spend winter in deeper and warmer parts of the South America and Africa. And in case of the longitudinal migration, that means moving from east to west or vice versa. Starling moves from east to west, that means from Europe to West Asia and to the Atlantic coast. And in case of the altitudinal migration in India, number of species during summer migrate from plains to the slope. And example is grapes and coots. Now this altitudinal migration in case of the Himalayan observed in case of Himalayan snow patch. And the partial migration, many species of the temperate region are only partial migrant, and in addition to migration is made to the constant resident, means the birds which are prevailing there. A common example is blue jay. Now some bird move long distance and some bird can move short distance. So long distance migratory bird example is Arctic tern. It generally enjoys two summer, and short distance migratory bird example is cedar wasp, as I have also mentioned earlier that uh, Himalayan snow partridge and Himalayan black bulbul is also example of short migratory birds. Now, what are the factors that affect this migration? Basically, the bird behave somewhat different from one species to the next. As the songbird fly at an altitude above 5,000 feet, but majority of the bird they travel higher than 2,500 feet. You will be surprised to know that bird can cross, or majority or most of the bird can cross the Himalayan barrier. So one example is demosil crane. So demosil crane is moving to China, from China to India, and when they are moving, they are crossing the Himalayas. Bar-headed geese also moving through these Himalayas. Now weather condition also major factor that affect the migration. As you can observe here the altitude and migration of different kinds of the birds depicted here. Now direction of and speed of the wind also the major factor that affect the migration of the bird. And one of the most critical weather that affecting the migration of the bird is wind direction, and wind blow clockwise around high and counterclockwise around low air pressure system. In high air pressure system and in low air pressure system, bird is moving clockwise and counterclockwise, which in turn affecting the migration or movement of the bird. Now, how do birds generally navigate, or they generally find their way when the birds move? So there are certain factors. One is visual landmark. Now, what is the visual landmark? Bird basically senses the direction through some topographical features such as great river, valleys, coastline, chains, and oceanic islands and mountain ranges. They generally use this as a visual landmark for their migration. Now, experience in terms of experience, it is not necessary one bird has to or one bird have to experience enough to initiate its migration. It is observed through experiment that native birds which have or which has no prior experience of moving, they are also capable of moving in a particular direction when they are coming in natural condition. So it is not necessary that bird has to experience for moving from one place to another. This is their natural instinct which instigates the bird to move. Now they are using sun as a compass. So sun as a compass, that famous experiment was done by the Gustav Kramer in the year of 1949, and in which he found that bird using sun as a compass, and when they have created a setup and in the setup they mimic the sun, and they have changed the direction of the sun. Amazingly, they have found that bird also move, or bird also change their movement according to the position of the sun. So this is the thing through which you can say that bird often use sun as a compass for their navigation, and they also use certain constellation, that is stars. One famous German ornithologist, that is Franz Schwer have done his experiment, and through which he has demonstrated that basically he has done his experiment with starlings, and through starling with the experiment with starlings, he has demonstrated that bird use these celestial cues for their movement. Now they can use Earth as a compass because through experiment done by von Midenhoff and Henry Euclid, and they forwarded the idea that birds navigate through the responses of the Earth's magnetic field, which in turn affect their inner ear, which basically the Coriolis effect that is produced by the rotation of the bird, which affect the inner ear of the bird, and then they can sense the direction of their migration. Now let us see the journey of Amur falcon. As you can see here that Amur falcon, then now let me tell you first one fact that where the term Amur is coming. Amur is a place in Russia. So Amur falcon breeds in northern China and eastern Russia. That place is known as Amur. So from where this term derived, that is Amur falcon, and it migrates to southern Africa, and through its course of migration, it spent certain amount of time in India, and in India they give a stopover in Nagaland, and there was probably people might have come across the news that in the year of as far I can remember, in the year of 2012, there was a report of killing of about 1.2 lakh of palm falcon by the people of the by the hunter in Nagaland, or tribal group of the Nagaland. Then it created a news turmoil, and then all of the conservation organization condemned this issue, and from then their conservation of the Amur falcon initiated, and through satellite tracking it was found that it generally covered 22,000 kilometers through its course of journey from Russia or from Mongolia to Africa, and whenever it is giving the stop to this northeast India, that is Nagaland, Manipur, and Assam. And in Assam, it is residing in a place that is known as Dima Hasao. And in case of Nagaland, the district is, as far as I can remember, district is Longling. Yes, the district is Longling district. And in Manipur, it is Tamenglong district, where the birds generally resides for a certain period of time. That means 18 days stopover, where they generally refuel itself, and then they start its migration. In case of Arctic tern, it is famous for undertaking the longest migration of any bird species. It is traveling from its breeding ground Arctic to its wintering ground in the Antarctic, and then again it's come back. That means it is enjoying two summer. It is not uh, getting the view of winter. It is enjoying the only summer portion of the world. And through this course of journey, it is moving around 70,000 kilometers, approximately 70,900 kilometers through its course of journey. And it is an amazing journey. In case of Pacific golden plover, it breed in the Arctic tundra region of the Alaska and Siberia during the northern summer, and then it's migrates to the south for winter. And during migration, Pacific golden plover fly non-stop for thousands of kilometers across the Pacific Ocean to wintering ground in places like Hawaii, Australia, New Zealand, and island in the South Pacific, and their migratory path is quite remarkable, and they differ from their breeding ground in the late summer, and they fly over through the Pacific Ocean to reach their wintering sites. And the birds are known to make a stopover along the way to rest and refuel, but it is not necessary that every bird will refuel. Through satellite tracking, we have come to know that Bartel Godwit complete approximately 13,560 kilometers of journey from Alaska to Australia, and it is non-stop journey of 11 days, 1 hour. It is non-stop journey in case of Bartel Godwit. So how do you study the bird migration? Bird migration study can be done through banding and through radar and through satellite tracking and through moon watching. Now, banding means you are tagging the bird with, generally tagging is done in the leg portion. Certain tag is fitted, and whenever another individual or another ornithologist observe that tag, then they report from where the bird is coming. And through the radar we can observe, that is the radar means reflection. Radar means through the radar, radar is basically emitting certain kinds of radio waves, and when the waves is reflecting back, through which we are counting how many bird species are moving. And through satellite tracking we can identify, and this satellite tracking showing here is pallid harrier. Pallid harrier, through which we can find out the way through which the bird is moving. Now, what are the challenges that nowadays birds are facing for this migration? The first challenge is habitat loss. So, migratory birds face constant threat due to habitat destruction along their long journey, deforestation, urbanization, agriculture expansion, and climate. The climate change is also one kind of main reason for this challenge. Now, habitat loss means, suppose the bird is landing in a water body. Now, this water body encompassing of some certain kind of water plants. So, if you are eliminating water plants, and then there is a growth of invasive species, for example, Icornia, then the water body is filled with one particular kind of plant species, and then that bird, it is going to be then it is going to be generally difficult for a bird to land in that particular area. So it is also possessing one kind of challenge. Now, next challenge is human impact. Human impact means construction of the buildings and construction of certain lighthouses also possessing threat for the bird during its navigation. Now, lack of connectivity means fragmentation of the habitat, and barrier like dams or roads can interrupt the seamless flyway that the migratory birds rely on, forcing them to expend extra energy and resources to complete the journey. And due to this climate change, there is also a change in the pattern of wintering and pattern of summer. So if there is a change in winter or change in wintering pattern, then the breeding pattern of the birds also change. That means the breeding population of the bird will fall. So this is also a challenge that we have to think about. Now, what is the importance of the bird migration? There is some ecological importance. Now, what is ecological importance? So, migratory birds play a crucial role in maintaining the ecological balance of different habitats by dispersing seeds, pollinating plants, and controlling insect population. So, birds also help to control the insect population. Now, what are the economic benefit? Bird watching and ecotourism gets a boost when certain birds from Siberia comes to your place. So, that generally boosts up our economy. So bird also serves as a biodiversity indicator. The health and abundance of the migratory birds population denote that how the environmental condition is it. Now there is also cultural significance. Migratory birds have been preserved in many cultures, and their annual journey have been celebrated throughout the art, literature, and certain traditional practices. Now, different conservation efforts have been given to protect this migratory bird. So here I must say one kind of one important fact, that is Bonn Convention. Bonn Convention was held in Germany in the year of 1979. The Bonn Convention was held to give the protection to this migratory bird, and the name of that convention was the conservation of migratory species of wild animals, and it was held in Germany in the year 1979, and it was enforced in the year of 1983. And so far, as I can remember, that 133 countries are party to it. That means 133 countries are implying the fundamentals of this Bonn Convention. So, to ensuring this migration or to ensuring this migratory bird species, we have to protect certain areas, we have to establish protected habitat, and we have to monitor and research these migratory flyways, and we have to give population awareness so that one community should engage itself in conservation of the bird and they should not hunt the bird because they are not possessing any kind of threat rather than they are giving benef- beneficial effect to our society. Now, how we can protect the migratory birds? We can provide habitat, create bird-friendly gardens, and plant native vegetation to provide food and shelter to this migratory bird, and we can reduce our waste, properly dispose of the waste, and reduce use of pesticides because these pesticides one major threat is coming through that is neonicotinoids. This neonicotinoid poisoning is coming through insecticides, and these neonicotinoids is capable of interfering the circadian rhythm or biological clock or circadian clock. And also there is a pollution due to air pollution, pollution due to the abundance of particulate matter of 2.5, which can also uh, modulate circadian rhythm. So this is also possessing certain kind of the threat. We can spread our awareness, and we can also involve volunteer, and we can also involve our local organization, and we can also monitor and protect and restore certain habitat for this migratory bird species. And last, I shall show you some important fact that in India about 80 Ramsar sites are found, and which are generally serves as a protected site for these migratory birds. And these Ramsar sites are generally wetland with significant advantages. So we should give emphasis to give protection to this wetland so that we can ensure our migratory bird species survival. Now, thank you all for your patience, and I am thankful to Zoological Association of Bardhaman for providing me this opportunity to deliver my lecture. I hope this fact is interesting to all of you. Now, all of you will spread awareness for this bird migration, and you should try your best level or level best to give ensure or to ensure the survivability of this migratory bird species. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your nice presentation. Dear students, if you have any question, please ask to our resource person. Dr. Mondal, I have two requests.
Yes,
First,
sir. Please.
if you please mention some textbooks for students, and
Okay.
if you would like to share any study material, please provide me. Then I shall forward it to their WhatsApp group,
Okay.
if any.
Okay. Okay. I can share the presentation if you wish. Then you can share it with the or you can circulate it with the student.
Thank
And
you.
then I can share one research paper. There is a good research paper that from Swiss Institute by Barbara Helm in the year 2000. I think in this year 2015 Journal of Physiology. This is also a good journal, which you can also refer to the student. So as I can see that one have some question. Let me check. Okay, physiological changes. Okay, what kind of physiological changes occur during migratory birds? Okay, so physiological changes that is occurring in bird migration, that they are whenever the bird need to move, that means they need to refuel themselves. So as I have told you that bird prepare themselves by the environmental cues, that is jet giver. So that jet giver instigated certain hormonal signaling through which bird goes through hyperphagia. Hyperphagia means excessive feeding behavior, and through which bird become voracious eater through which voracious eater they can ensure higher amount of fat within their body, and fat deposition is going on, and through this fat they can complete their journey. Next question is, all migratory birds have magnet in their beak. No, 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 there is no magnet in their beak. Basically, the Coriolis effect or Coriolis force they are sensing through the inner cochlea. There is no magnet within their beak. I think there is no more question. Okay, so student can go through the for book material. I can say you that you can go through the book of Kotpal. In Kotpal vertebrate you can follow, and that is very lucid language. You can go through it RL Kotpal, and I said after this over, I will share this presentation to Dr. Ghosh, and he will share it with you. And I shall also share the link of that particular journal, which will be beneficial for you if you want to elaborate or if you want to read the genetics behind this migration. Okay.
Thank you. We have some important announcements. All students are requested to attend the online classes regularly and join the Google Meet session on time before the lecture begins. Late entries create the technical issues when multiple students join simultaneously. Additionally, we would like to celebrate World Environment Day on 5th June at 5 p.m. sharp. You are all invited to attend the program. Further details will be shared in the group. We are grateful to you, sir, for accepting our invitation and illuminating your valuable knowledge with us. Dr. Mondal has beautifully discussed on the topic, but migration includes migratory stimulus, factors affecting migration of birds, their biological clock, importance of migration, how do birds navigate, and what are the challenges faced during migration. Dr. Mondal is the eminent resource person who worked at Bombay Natural History as a research biologist in the year 2014 and 15 in collaboration with Royal Society for Protection of Birds. I congratulate you, sir, for your nice presentation and think your valuable lecture will be effective for our students in their academic arena. We also thanks to students for their participation. Now we conclude today's lecture session. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Dr. Ghosh, I have one more announcement that probably I have made one wrong announcement. That is, I have told you that 180 bird species that is using Central Asian flyway. So that number will be 128. So probably I have, due to by mistake, I have used the term 180. That figure will be 128 instead of 180. 128 bird species is generally using this Central Asian flyway. Okay, there is a minor correction. Other things are fine. Okay. Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir. Thank you.
Okay.